Well, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is so good to have you here. I am so glad to be back. It's been a while. It's been crazy the last couple of weeks, the last couple of months, which we'll be talking about today. But to everybody that's here this morning, just welcome. Welcome to Unity Spiritual Community of Grand Rapids. This place that we're in the process of creating that we hope, that you can walk in these doors and you can be safe here. You can be held here. You can be loved here. You can be healed here. You can be transformed here. You can laugh here. You can cry here. You can be bold. You can be courageous. You can do these things that often we are told, don't do that. Don't be too bright. Don't shine too much. Or just ignore what's inside of your heart that's telling you there's something more. There's other possibilities. There's this connection to yourself. There's this connection to God. And then when we embrace that, we do this amazing dance. It allows us to really have true freedom and true connection, which everybody in their own way is looking for. And the thing that's really cool about this is we get to do this together. This isn't about Mike. It's not about whoever. It's about all of us creating this really sacred and beautiful space. Because when we open ourselves up to that possibility where two or more are gathered, and we say, you know what? We're going to turn this space into the most healing, beautiful, transformative space that there is, we get to do that. It's our intentions that make that happen. And that's what we're doing here. And that's why we're seeing so many people are starting to show up. Like, I'm telling you, folks, it's getting kind of weird, but fun, right? People are showing up because they're feeling this energy. And it's, again, it's us, it's we that are doing it. We, the people, are the ones that are doing it. And it's really, really beautiful to behold and really, really fun to be a part of. Because we want to embrace everybody that walks through those doors. We don't care about somebody's nationality. Well, we do care. Or about the color of their skin, or their sexual orientation or preference. We want to welcome everybody, and we want to focus on the one thing that's going to bring us all together, and that's this idea of unity, consciousness, and love. When we can do that, I'm feeling like pretty good about that. And whether we have 25 people sitting here or we got 125 people here, that's not what I'm concerned about. I'm just concerned about showing up and having and being in a space that will allow people to have an opportunity to grow, to expand, to love, to have this experience with each other, to touch on something that is so sacred and so beautiful that when we're honestly able to do that, it changes your life. It changes everything because we step over here from being more of a victim, and then all of a sudden we stand over here to being a powerful creator with the divine, with each other. And then all of a sudden it's like, look out, because that's when it starts to get fun. So, we're glad you're here this morning. Really, really, really glad you're here this morning. So we hope you can sit back, enjoy the ride, and have fun. I mean, because if this isn't fun, then why are we doing it, right? How about a little bit of a fireside chat? That's what this morning is feeling like. I wanted to share with you some things that have happened to me over the last 60 days because they've been profound. I fully understand that when I share some of these things, you're going to be looking at me like I am nuts for thinking that they're beautiful and they're profound. But don't worry, I'll tie it all together by the time we get to the end. So just hang with me for a minute. So as many of you know, my wife and I went down to Guatemala, had a wonderful time down there. We went down there for a sound bath training, came back here, did a sound bath. For those of you that were here that experienced that, it was pretty amazing, and we loved doing it, and we will be doing a lot more of that, so stay tuned. So imagine one of the mornings I get up when I'm in Guatemala and I decide to go for a run. And Guatemala, as many of you know, is a third world country. And so I went for this run, and just understand, you've got very small villages, and you've got people walking around and dogs walking around, and a lot of dirt roads and a lot of shacks, and it's a third world country, so that's what you deal with, which I personally love. I love to go out there and just be in that energy and feel that, and it just teaches me so much about life and how blessed I really am. And so going into these environments, I actually love. I would highly suggest, if you don't have an opportunity to do that, like once every couple of years, go live in a third world country for a couple of weeks, just so that you know and understand that we are really, really blessed here. And so as I go out for my run, I'm having a wonderful time. It's a gorgeous morning. I'm seeing the people, and they're walking here and there, and there's the children and everything that's going on of this little tiny village. And I've already run a couple of days in a row, so they're kind of looking at me like, is this guy crazy? Because I'm showing up. I got all my running gear on, and I got my hat on, and I got all my stuff on. And there's a part of me that smiled, but I would say hello to everybody, and they would just welcome me, and it was really, really beautiful. And as I went through this small little village, I would continue on for about a mile or so. And this morning, in particular, I came around this one corner, and all of a sudden, I see a pack of dogs. Now, understand something, that I had seen packs of dogs. I'd seen a lot of dogs, because there's a lot of dogs down there, right? But this time was a little bit different. And what I mean by that is, seeing a lot of dogs, they didn't even ever acknowledge me. So there was no acknowledgement that I was even there, because there's so many of them that they just don't, for the most part, pay attention. But this time was different. So I come around this corner, and all of a sudden there's this pack of six dogs, and I'm, about 100 feet from them. And I'm in my own little world. I'm all blissed out. I'm running. I'm having fun. It's amazing. And all of a sudden, I see this pack of 6 dogs, and all of a sudden I hear them start to growl. I think to myself. And so I run a few more feet, and now the growling is getting a little bit louder, and I'm going, okay, whoa, slow down. So I start slowing down. And now they're about 25 feet from me, and all of a sudden I just come to a stop, and I think, yeah, this isn't necessarily sounding very good, right? And so I come to a complete stop, and now the dogs are coming towards me growling louder, and there's 6 of them. And all of a sudden, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I've got a pack of 6 wild dogs. They're coming at me. They're growling, and they don't want to be my best friend in any way, shape, or form. Right? And I'm like, okay. And as they're coming closer and closer and closer to me, it's game is on. Like, this is going to happen. This moment is going to happen. I've got these dogs here, and something needs to happen, and if I don't do something, I'm going to be attacked by this pack of 6 dogs. And here's what happened, was in that moment, what I understood, or what was given to me in that moment, is that what I needed to do was I needed to match their energy. In other words, they were, and I don't know why, but that's what I was told. And so, as these dogs are getting closer and closer and closer, and there was one of them that was definitely the leader of the pack, all of a sudden, guess what I started doing? Didn't work. In fact, if anything, I think it just got it more mad. And the next thing you know, I've got the ones coming closer, but now I'm getting surrounded. Like, this pack of dogs knew what it was doing. It knew exactly what it was doing. And so now imagine, if you will, you're out in the middle of nowhere, no one's around, and you're being surrounded by a pack of 6 dogs, and that circle is starting to get closer and closer and closer. And I am sitting there, I don't know why, but that's what I was told I needed to do. And now the one dog is getting closer and closer, and I'm like, oh man, closer, closer, and the circle is getting closer and closer and closer. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And all of a sudden, they got about a foot away from me, and I was ready to strike, and all of a sudden they stopped. And the alpha dog looked at me and started slowly backing off, and as the alpha dog did that, then the whole circle started backing off. And I'm standing there, and they just start kind of walking away. The only problem was with the whole thing was that I had to go back that way, right? But I kind of ran a little bit down the road just to kind of calm down. As you can imagine, I'm pretty ramped up right at this point in time. And I made sure that if I encountered him again, I had, maybe a big stick and a couple of rocks just to make sure. But the thing is this, is that I came away from that fine. And while I can sit here and share the story with you and tell you that it wasn't a lot of fun, what I can share with you is, without a doubt, if you would have asked me before that happened, what would you have done? I would have looked at you and said, probably have gotten eaten by 6 dogs. But I didn't. Somehow something showed up and told me what I needed to do in order to be okay in that moment, and I never was touched. So, that happened while I was in Guatemala. Then I come back home. On a Sunday, I show up here, I speak, and later in the afternoon, all of a sudden, I start getting this headache. And I don't ever get headaches, and I'm just like, yeah, whatever. I got a headache, so what? And I go to bed that night, I wake up the next day, and the headache's a little bit stronger. And all of a sudden I notice my eyes are getting a little bit funky and weird. And I'm just like, yeah, whatever. And I tell my wife, I'm like, it's kind of weird. I got this low-grade headache, and I got this headache, my vision is kind of going weird. And I'm just paying attention. And again, it's one of those things where you're living life. I'm not really thinking about it, but I'm just looking back now. I kind of know what was going on, but I didn't at the time. And so the next day I wake up, and absolutely my eyes are, there's part of my left eye that I can't even see out. And I'm like, okay. So now you've really got my attention. But I hung out that day, and I didn't necessarily call a doctor or my whatever, because after all, that's just, I got to admit, there's a part of me that's just a guy. We don't want to deal with this stuff. We don't want to call the doctor. We don't want to do anything. We just want to ignore it. And so for a minute, I did that. And I thought, okay, I'll go to bed and give this thing one more day to see what the heck's going on. And so what happened was, the next morning I get up, still an issue. Understand that I had a trip that I was supposed to be going on that weekend. This is Wednesday morning. I'm supposed to leave Thursday morning and be going to Toronto for the weekend. And what happens is I wake up and I think to myself, I don't want to call the doctor, but maybe, I know what I'll do. I'll call, and if they say they can't see me, at least I did my part, right? At least I tried. But if they say they can't see me, then I'll go see them when I get back on Monday. But in the meantime, I'm not going to worry about it. But I call them. And so what happens is they say, yeah, we actually will squeeze you in. You'll be the last person that comes in for the day. Cool. And so I go in and I see my optometrist. She's a friend of the family, so we're sitting there gabbing, and I'm telling her about the trip, and I'm telling her about, what's going on in life and everything, and she's looking, and she's looking, and she's looking. We're having a very nice conversation. And all of a sudden, it goes from being a nice, casual conversation. She said, oh, Michael, I now have figured out what's going on. You are not going to Toronto. You are going to be going home because you have a detached retina, and you're going to be having surgery within the next 24 hours. Don't plan on doing anything for at least 2 weeks. This procedure is probably going to cost you $10,000. You are going to be face down in the bed for 2 weeks. You are to go home and plan on getting a call from the surgeon probably tomorrow morning. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I said, I sure did like my life a lot more 5 minutes ago than I do right now. I was stunned. I'm just like, I've never had anything like this happen before. And so she gave me my marching orders. I go out into the parking lot and cried. I was freaked out. I was scared. I didn't know what any of this meant, because I'm just a human being like everybody else, and this was devastating to me. And there was something inside of me in that moment when I was going through that just made me feel like I was going to be okay, that it was going to be all right. And I don't claim to say what it was other than just a feeling, a knowing, like it's going to be okay. So I got up the next morning, and sure enough, I get a call, and the doctor says, come in and see me at 11 o'clock. The good news is my daughter and son-in-law were able to meet me there. And so I go in at 11 o'clock, and right away the doctor and I hit it off. He's a runner. He's run the Boston Marathon. He's a graduate from Calvin. And I mean, it was like two buddies hanging out, having a good old time talking, which was really, really nice. And, he looks at me and he goes, well, yeah, you have a detached retina. And yep, we got to do something. And he said, here's the 3 options that you've got. And each one of them got progressively more invasive. One was a pretty basic one. The one in the middle, they're starting to put hardware in your eyeball. The next one is going to be full-blown out surgery. And so he's explaining all the options. He's also explaining to me all the percentages of success rates for each one. And then he finally says, so there's your options, which one you want? And I said, I don't know, Doc. It's your eye. Which one are you taking? And he tells me that he honestly believed that because of the way that the thing happened and the way that it was looking, that he doesn't recommend it for very many people, but he would recommend the least invasive procedure to me. And he said, understand, I rarely suggest somebody doing it, but you happen to fit that category. Okay. And when can you do this? Right now. How long is this going to take? About 20 minutes. Really? Yeah, really. Okay, let's do this. And so he goes, all right, we're going to have to switch rooms, and I'm going to put some drops in your eyes, and then you're going to feel a little bit of pressure. Everything's going to be fine. So I'm walking out, and the nurse is walking me into the place where the procedure is going to be. And I said, how much is this thing going to cost? I'm freaking out about the 10 grand, right? How much is this thing going to cost? She hands me a piece of paper, and I look at it, and I'm telling you, I'm like, my eyes are not working right now because that number is not even close to the number, $10,000 number. And she goes, no, it's right. It was like a fraction of the $10,000. And I'm like, is this right? She goes, no, it's absolutely right. Wow, okay. Okay. So we go and have the procedure done. The procedure goes off without a hitch. The only thing I will tell you is my doctor's description of a little pressure and my description of a little pressure is an entirely different reality. Oh my God. But it got fixed. They put the tear back in its place. They actually tack it together with a laser. And then what they do is they put a little bubble of nitrous oxide in your eye. And what that does is it holds the retina while it's healing. As I'm looking at you right now, I can still, the bottom third of my left eye is basically the bubble. I can see it. And it will fade over the next couple of weeks. That's how it works. So we get done with the procedure, and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to go home, and I'm going to wind up laying face down for the next 2 weeks, right? He goes, no, you don't need to do that for 2 weeks. Really? I goes, yeah, no. He goes, only for a couple hours. He goes, about 3. And then all I need you to do is just to sit up like upright in like a recliner. And he said, and keep your head tilted about 30 degrees. And he said, then you'll do that for about 4 days. You can't sleep in a bed. You got to keep your head above your feet. And then come back in and see me. Because everybody, at this point in time, is telling me, oh no, this is going to be this big, long, drawn-out process. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm thinking, okay, I don't have any way I can lay with my face down, and I don't have a recliner. And I go home, and I walk in the door, and by this time, the people that we stay with have brought over a massage table so I can lay down on it. And after I have a little bit of a conversation with them, after I wind up waking up, all of a sudden, I see him pulling up in this little tractor, and it's got a recliner in it. And he brings me a recliner that I can use. Okay. I call my sister, who was busy traveling, and she heard what was going on, and all of a sudden she said, I'm coming. I'm going to be there. My wife actually had a trip planned, and we had this discussion, and I was very clear about, hey, go, and if anything crazy happens, I'll call you, but I want you to go. And so she said, I'm only going to do it if somebody can be here with you, and it wound up being my sister. And so for the next 3 or 4 days, I hung out with my sister. We have not had a chance to talk or bond in a while. There was some distance that was going on there. And the next 2 or 3 days were just magical that we got to spend with each other. It was incredible. And then I wind up going back in on the following Monday and go see the doc. And the doc looks at everything, and to make a long story short, says it's 100% perfect. Like, the thing held, which is what we were hoping for, and you can return to light activity. And I got that stern look because he knows I'm a runner. He knows what I do. And he's like, Michael, I said light. He said for the next week or so, and then after that, he said, then you can start introducing things into your, you can start bringing running back in slowly into it. And then he said, what will happen is over the next couple of months, the nitric oxide bubble will start to disappear, and then everything should be fine. And so you hear, as I'm sharing these stories with you, there's some people who would hear, okay, so let me get this right. In the last 60 days, you've got attacked by a wild pack of dogs in Guatemala. You've had a detached retina. And you're sitting there and you called the name of this talk a beautiful ride. I don't get it. But here's the thing, and this is really what it comes down to. What I realized in both of those moments, which were completely different in terms of what I needed in order to feel safe, in order to be held, in order to feel good, was given to me. I think a lot of people think that when you start doing this stuff, walking your spiritual journey, using the spiritual tools that we teach here, that everything is going to be roses, that there's not going to be anything that shows up anymore, that nothing will come up. And that's just a complete and total nonsense. Nobody's walking around here saying that once you start doing this stuff isn't going to show up in your life that's not going to be challenging. But the thing that I realized more than anything was in those crazy moments was how blessed I was. I had no idea what to do when 6 dogs come up and surround me and I think I'm going to get eaten. I didn't know what to do. If you'd asked me before that, I would have said, run like hell, which would have been the biggest mistake I could have made. I didn't know that what I needed when my retina got detached, what I could not believe, and some of you actually read my post, I know you did on Facebook, is what I did is I went through and I counted all the blessings that happened in this. From Oh, of all the things that could have happened, this is probably the least worst thing that could have happened to you. Oh, of all the procedures that you could have, you can do the one that's going to require the least amount of recovery and time to do it. Oh, instead of costing $10,000, it's going to cost a fraction of that. Oh, instead of having to sleep with your face down for 2 weeks, you only got to do it for a few hours, and then you can kind of move around a little bit. You just got to keep your head tilted. Oh, instead of having to be by yourself, you're actually going to get to spend time with your sister and connect again because you guys have been missing that over the past X amount of time. And on and on and on. One of the things I did was I also reached out to everybody. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I called Silent Unity when I was out in the car crying. I called Silent Unity. And then, guess what? I told everybody here. The love, the prayers, the way I was held was mind-blowing to me. It's almost like God said, hey, you need to know how much you're loved, how much you're supported, how much you're cared for. You need to have that experience because you just don't know. And so the thing I really want to share with you this morning is to understand that sometimes life gets hard. It really, really, really does. I know for a fact right now there's people in this room that have challenges or watching us online that are being challenged. And for some of you, it's happening right now. For some of you, within the last year or two, some of the stuff that you have gone through, and I mean some big stuff. Losing a spouse, losing a child, losing a job, getting a diagnosis, watching a loved one go through their health challenges. Those are not easy things, and I am in no way, shape, or form here telling you that or making light of those because those are really very real things and can be very, very difficult. But my experience has been, and I think the greatest blessing of all of it is to know that given the moment, in the moment, that I was given whatever it was that I needed to be able to hold on. And it was profound to me. It was incredible for me. I feel like my soul has been cracked open even a little bit on a deeper level. And one of the things I was thinking about was even like Jesus. You know, think about Jesus' life. You know, he was all of these amazing things. He did all these amazing things, and yet, let's just get real for a moment. That whole crucifixion thing did not sound like a really good party to be going to, right? And yet, he was able to maintain this sense of peace and the sense of knowingness because he knew, his soul knew on a deeper level what it really needed to go through for what it was that he was trying to do. And so that was the setup. And what I would say is that my experience has been these setups that we all go through. That somewhere in there, if you can just hang in for a minute and just trust that God does show up and is there in order to help you get through it. And that doesn't always mean it's going to be easy or it's going to be pretty or it's going to be fun. But what I can tell you is that for me, it's changed me profoundly. And as I sit here now and share these things with you, it's just been incredible to see something like that happen and to watch the way the universe, God, held me. And I think one of the biggest things that I felt was the way that God held me through you and through other people. In other words, God did hold me through other people. That's how I was held. And to me, that's one of the greatest blessings, one of the greatest lessons that I could learn. Because I have a tendency to be very independent, very strong, that's just what I do, right? And for me to be able to receive, it took a minute. It took a minute. And so it was really, really, really profound. And so I wanted to share that with you because it was really on my mind, and the more I look back at it, the more I'm really moved by it, like a lot. Because, you know, we get up here and I talk and I I do my thing, right? And I share with you all this stuff, but sometimes it gets so real that I want you to know that, hey, don't think that Mike's up here just blowing smoke and just doing what he's doing. I'm actually living my life. And like everybody else, I hit my bumps, just like everybody else. And I have my moments in the car when I cry because I don't know what's going on and I'm scared. But the thing that was magical to me is the way that I was held. And I hope, if anything, that you take away from this, that you've got an amazing group of people right here that will hold you if you will let them. If you will let them, you will be held. We will hold you. With God, you will be held. And to me, I think that's the greatest lesson I take away from all of this, is that when you're going through those times when things get a little bit crazy, just know that you are held. It's just a matter of you opening yourself up to be held. And so, what do I take away from this? Well, a couple things. If you ever go running in a third world country, take a stick. And take God. And take God. And take God. So, having said that, to each and every one of you who thought, prayed, reached out to me, thank you. You have been felt, your prayers were heard, and I cannot possibly thank you enough. I'm beyond grateful to be back here. It's a little weird, it's a little funky. That's why I got the glasses on, because even from a balance standpoint, it's kind of a little bit weird right now, but I'm getting better, and it's going to continue to heal, and we're going to continue to move forward. But it really was a beautiful ride. Like, holy cow. I'll share one last thing with you that I thought was pretty cool. After I had a chance to sit down and go like, okay, what's this thing going on with my eye? Because I believe that normally there's something for us to learn, even in those circumstances. And so I had a chance to sit down, and I wrote this in my journal. I wrote down, why did this happen? Why? And I sat there, and then the following came through. It said, you quit using your intuition to learn, to listen deeper, and to trust yourself. You are right so many times with your intuitive hits, and yet you ignore what it's trying to tell you. It's somewhat shut down. But you can easily reopen it, and you're now ready. On a soul level, you wanted to remember this, and this is why this has happened. Think about what you did when you woke up Wednesday. You knew something was wrong, and there was a part of you that wanted to ignore it, just like so many times in the past, and just go on your trip. And yet you didn't. This time you did something different. You actually listened and acted on the intuition, and look at the results. This has not been natural for you in the past. Your soul, me, wanted for you to remember, let me read this again. Your soul wanted you to remember again why it's so important to listen and trust your intuition, and voila, you created this experience. Nothing more or less than considering what happened, or should I say what didn't happen, in those two circumstances, I would say, nice job, Mike. You asked, why can't I, your soul, just be louder? It's not about me getting louder. It's not possible for me to scream any louder. It's about you slowing down and doing whatever you need to do to hear me and then follow me. It's about you learning how to, or should I say, remembering to pay attention and to listen more. Understand I have been here with you always, and I always will be. And one more thing, and I'm going to have your attention. May we suggest, moving forward, that we not be so dramatic. You can get your lessons without so much clarity.
You got it. You nailed it, Mike. Take the time to take all of this in, sit with it for a while, and make sure you come back to see me soon. Remember, I am always here for you. Pretty incredible, pretty amazing, and pretty available to all of you. So, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being who and what you are in my life. You are irreplaceable, each and every one of you. And I could not be more grateful. It is not possible. So just know that you have made a difference in my life, and I will forever be grateful, and you will be in my heart, and you'll be in my prayers, and you'll be in my thoughts. God bless.